Hello, thank you so much. My name is Fia Paventi, and today I will be singing with you all. I'm very excited to be here. We are starting off with our gathering song, so we'll be singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and the Spirit is in Me. He's got the whole world in His hands. 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 He's got my brothers and sisters in His hands. He's got my brothers and sisters in His hands. He's got my brothers and sisters in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the sun and rain in His hands. He's got the moon and stars in His hands. He's got the wind and clouds in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the rivers and mountains in His hands. He's got the oceans and the seas in His hands. He's got you and me in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got everybody here in His hands. He's got everybody here in His hands. He's got everybody here in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. The Spirit is in me, and I'm a child of God. I join with all creation to sing and to applaud. God is great, God is good, God is in my heart, and I promise ever to do my part, to seek justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with my God. The Spirit is in me, and I'm a child of God. I join with all creation to sing and to applaud. God is great, God is good, God is in my heart, and I promise ever to do my part, to seek justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with my God.
Welcome. It's good to be back. Boy, I was in New Jersey last week, and it was so ironic because I was talking with some new friends there, and we were talking about differences between West and East Coast, and they said, yeah, here we freak out when gas hits $3 a gallon. And I laughed aloud because I thought it was really hilarious. And then we drove by a gas station and it said $3.38 a gallon. Woo! What an experience that was. But it's good to be back here because our gas may be significantly higher, but so is the warmth and the love and the grace. And that's why I'm so thrilled to be back. So today, as we gather as a community, every time I lead worship, I always pause to remind ourselves who we are and how we are. And for those who might be newer or haven't been here for a while, there are three commitments that fundamentally define who we are. We are a just peace congregation. That means we live our values not in a confrontational way, but in a way that transforms and warms people's hearts to embrace the ways of Christ. We are a progressive Christian community, which means that we don't have to denigrate or deny the faith of another person or even another faith tradition entirely. In fact, we follow Jesus in the wholest-hearted way when we leave room and honor all people's journeys. And finally, we are an open and affirming community, as one of the masks that someone had given me during the COVID reminded me. It started as an explicit welcome to the LGBTQIA community who had been so intentionally excluded, and it has spilled over. We know that the space is most sacred when we are our authentic selves. Now, some of you may wonder why we say that every single week. And this week I was reminded in a way that I had never why it's so important. On Friday, a phone call came into the office, and I was listening to Erica, the secretary, take it, and I knew it was about a memorial service. And Eric was trying to explain that I was leaving, etc. And to make a long story short, the mother of a 16-year-old trans young man who had been in the nursery school many years ago, he had committed suicide on Wednesday. And in the trans community, those of us who know, 80% of the community members contemplate suicide and 40% attempt it. And I was thinking as she talked, what a terrifying phone call that is for so many families, not knowing that in their moment of greatest need, if this would be a safe place, if this would be a place that could celebrate the whole of the life. And so I had the honor of sitting with the family yesterday. We are going to be doing the service Saturday at 3 p.m. So if any of you, as an expression of support to the family, want to be involved, please seek me out. But that's exactly in those moments why it's so important to pause every time we gather and remember who we are. Because there aren't a lot of folks in the world like us. And its lives are at stake. And so that's why we pause every week and remember who we are. So having said that today, and catching our breath with the weight of that, I'm just going to pause for a moment. And then I'm going to invite Thea to join with me. And when I gesture, I'll ask you to rise in body, and if you can, in body and spirit, as we start this time of worship. But again, let's take a few moments of silence to honor the loss and the pain. Amen. Sophia, if you will join with me, and everyone, if you're able, rise in body, and I will lead us together in the call to worship. Righteous One, you are ever listening.
We come boldly, lifting our praise to you, because we know you hear us.
Bringer of justice, you reveal truth to us.
You help us to see how things are and how they can be.
Eternal God, you persist in love and justice.
We want to persist in love and justice too.
And so, to express that desire, we are going to sing Cry of My Heart, and Thea and Wayne will lead us.
It is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, so I can walk in your truth. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, and make me wholly devoted to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life. Open my eyes so I can see the wonderful things that you do. Open my heart up more and more and make me wholly devoted to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life. All right, and now we invite our children up to sing This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,
Good morning. Thank you guys. I wanted to thank you so much for that song, Cry of My Heart. It's one of my favorites. It just lifted my spirits this morning. This morning in Sunday school, we're starting a series on prayer. And behind me, you're not just going to hear from me today. The kiddos are going to help, and they're having some stage fright. So I'm going to have you guys send them out some extra love and some extra support. So in trying to think about how do you teach prayer, it seems like such a big, daunting thing. I am rounding the corner to 50, and even still, I was thinking, how do you teach prayer? I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but there are people, they're known to be, and there's nothing wrong with this, prayer warriors. They are warriors of prayer, and they pray the most beautiful things. And then we're doing popcorn prayer or praying it around, and it's my turn, and I'm like, I don't necessarily pray pretty. I just pray. And I don't have these and thous and those and shalls, and I just don't have those. So I'm thinking, how do I teach these kiddos when, just like me, they're hearing the most beautiful prayers? How do I teach them that it's okay to just say, Dear God? So I was in the store the other day and I found this book, Dear God, my little book of Dear God letters. And they're so amazing. For example, Dear God, do something. Dear God, I'm tired of sitting on the side. This is one of my favorites. Dear God, have you noticed I could do with a little help around here? How many of you have prayed that prayer? Common prayer. Okay, I have some of my friends that are going to come up and read some of the prayers. Which one of you is going first? Can we give her some love?
Dear God, give me a hint where you are. I cannot see you. I cannot hear your voice. I am having a rough time following. Please help me find you. When you are having difficulty hearing God's voice, I ask God to open my ears. I learn to stay silent as I quietly listen to the Lord speaks to my heart. I must obey his instructions. If I have a rough time obeying his instructions, I ask God to help me. The Lord quickly answers my call.
And finally, just for today, we'll share this one. It's called Dear God, What Do You Think? God takes one good look at you and remembers the day that he made your fingers and toes. He chose your height and your hair color, put in your own little personality, and smiled at the you he had created. If you had put that much thought and love into something that you made, wouldn't you think it was extra special? That's how God feels about you. And the closing verse that I will leave you with today, Psalm 17, verse 8. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings. So just a reminder, prayer is so simple. Next week, I'm just going to tease our prayer lesson in Sunday school. I don't know what Pastor Craig has planned, but we're going to talk about sandwiches. Challenge accepted, Pastor Craig. Thank you guys so much. Let's go,
Isn't it great to see them back regularly again in worship? It just warms my heart. So the last 48 hours, as I've been thinking about the service before me, I was reminded in the mental health community that one of the symbols that's used by those who've either thought about, attempted, or are the surviving loved ones of those who've taken their lives is simply a semicolon. So you'll see it often either tattooed on a wrist, an arm, or someplace. And that is such a powerful symbol because what it's designed or created to remind us is no matter how bad things seem today, it's not a period moment in our life. That there's another clause or another piece to be added. And it's not always easy to get to the other clause in life. It takes, today we're going to hear about a woman who by tradition in the story is called the persistent widow. But it takes persistence. Things don't always resolve or get solved easily. And that's not what we like in this day and age of instant gratification. So to prepare our hearts for this difficult and challenging message today, I'm going to invite us into 2 minutes of prayer to center ourselves and ready to hear a message we may not like, but we certainly need. So as I'm beginning to travel around the country and see more expressions of church, I continue to be amazed at not just the number of youth we have for a community our size, but the role they take in the life of the community. And one of those powerful leaders at such a young age is Fia. And I'm not going to make you be persistent or wait much longer to hear her special music. I'm going to invite Sophia and Wayne to share right now.
Hello, everybody. Today I'll be singing a very special song. The song is from a show called Adventure Time, and it's by one of my favorite artists, Rebecca Sugar. It is called Everything Stays, and I think it's so important because it deals with change. I know a lot of us are working through that right now, and it talks about how everything stays, but it still changes. So everything's always a little bit here no matter what, and that is so important. So here we go. I'll bring this just a little closer to me. Let's go in the garden find something waiting right there where you left it, lying upside down. When you finally find it, you'll see how it's faded. The underside is lighter when you turn it around. Everything stays right where you left it. Everything stays, but it still changes ever so slightly, daily and nightly, in little ways, when everything stays. Go down to the ocean, the crystal sky is racing, water's gotten higher as the shore washes out. Keep your eyes wide open, even when the sun is racing. The moon controls the tide, it can cause you to drown. Everything stays right where you left it. Everything stays, but it still changes ever so slightly, daily and nightly, in little ways, when everything stays.
Thank you, Thea. You know, nothing pushes my buttons more when people say, youth are the future. No, they're our present. And you reminded us of that. Thank you. So in these highly charged times, when so many have divided themselves into political and theological camps, it's hard to find common ground with those we see as the other. In fact, we can find ourselves listening for certain taglines or phrases that the other might use. And as soon as we hear them say one of them, we immediately decide into which camp to put them, friend or foe. And sadly, one of those things that have been used to categorize people these days is their use of the phrase, "My thoughts and my prayers are with you." For some of us hear people say that and assume that they are simply offering that as a platitude, an intentional effort to divert our minds away from the serious, underlying issues that desperately need addressing. And there is certainly no doubt that some use that phrase, thoughts and prayers, that way. But is that the only way we can think of prayer? As an avoidance or diversion? Or could prayer have another purpose? Could it actually be used to transform both ourselves and even the world? Well, we have an opportunity to think about that this morning through the lens of a parable that Jesus told. So listen carefully to that parable on prayer. And then let's come back together and see if we might use that teaching to arrive at a different understanding of prayer. So here now, Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 8, and I'll be reading from the Common English Bible. Jesus told them a story showing that it was necessary for them to pray consistently and never quit. He said, "There was once a judge in some city who never gave God a thought and cared nothing for people. A widow in that city kept after him. 'My rights are being violated. Protect me.' He never gave her the time of day. But after this went on and on, He said to himself, I care nothing what God thinks, and even less what people think. But because this widow won't quit badgering me, I'd better do something and see that she gets justice. Otherwise, I'm going to end up beaten black and blue by her pounding. Then the master said, do you hear what the judge, corrupt as he is saying? So what makes you think God won't step in and work justice for his chosen people who continue to cry out for help? Won't God stick up for them? I assure you, God will. God will not drag God's feet. But how much of that kind of persistent faith will the Son of Man find on earth when he returns? And with that hanging question, thus ends the sacred reading. So, if you took the challenge I raised at the outset of my time with you to overcome our tendency as progressives to belittle or be dismissive of prayer, what then can this morning's parable teach us that can help us think about and actually pray in new ways? Well, Oliver Yarborough suggests that this morning's parable tells us two things about our life of faith and the role of prayer within it. First, he says it tells us that any healthy spiritual life is built upon what was called today perseverance in prayer. That P word, perseverance. And second, the depth of our faith life is linked to our ability to not lose heart. Sounds good, but how do we do it? How do we be persistent and not lose heart these horribly challenging days? Well, the key to that, I believe, lies in broadening our understanding of prayer. For you see, many of us struggle with our prayer lives because we're still trying to use methods that we learned decades ago in Sunday school as children. We think that all prayer is about is simply closing our eyes, bowing our heads, updating God about what's going on in our life as if God didn't already know, and then asking for stuff. That's prayer for so many. And that approach can work when we actually get the stuff we ask for. But I've learned this the hard way in 20 years of parish ministry. Such a narrow definition of prayer can be absolutely fatal to our spiritual lives in the moments when we don't get what we ask for. So how could we think about prayer in ways that can account for the good and bad, the answered and unanswered? Well, the key to that, John Buchanan says, is looking back to the example of the early church, those first decades after Jesus. For the early church, Buchanan noted, certainly prayed for many things it did not receive. It prayed for safety. They prayed for protection from persecution and so on, and it didn't stop it. But those early primitive people were smarter than those of us who give up when we don't get what we want. For instead of focusing on what they did not receive, our spiritual ancestors had a beauty and a power to focus on what prayer did, in fact, bring them. Things like, Buchanan notes, a sense of God's loving presence and attentiveness, and the strength and resilience and fortitude they needed to survive. That same strength I saw in the family of the young man yesterday. Those are things we can get and ought to get from prayer. Now, I can hear what some of you might be thinking. For I remember when I was in the pews 20 plus years ago, I thought the same thing. So what you're telling us, Pastor Craig, is that prayer is nothing more than an activity to placate us during tough times, something that can cause us to give up and simply give in to the status quo. No. In fact, I'm telling you exactly the opposite. For as Kimberly Long said so well in capturing the essence of today's parable, she said, we must understand that our prayers do not simply constitute a series of unanswered pleas, but rather our prayers are our participation in the coming reign of God. By praying continually, by being perseverant and not giving up hope, here's what I love most. We begin to live in the surety that God has not abandoned the world. And living in hope, we work in whatever ways we can for justice, peace, and transformation. In other words, prayer is not about simply giving up or accepting what is. No, prayer is all about connecting to the source of power that helps us resist the things that are so popular today: despair, cynicism, sarcasm, and doubt, so that instead we can be empowered agents of change. Sign me up for some of that. So what does it look like to live these prayer-infused lives that transform the status quo? Well, I found a beautiful example of how persistence in prayer and not giving up looks in our own beloved community of this thing called the United Church of Christ, through a group of its followers of Jesus. And let me tell you about how and what they taught me. And to do that, I need to give you a little background. So ever since our denomination was created in 1957, there has always been one way we have told our story. And we have said constantly for 65 years that the UCC was created from 4 streams that came together: the Christian church, the Congregationalist church, the Evangelical church, and the Reformed church, all white European cultures. End of story. That's the only story that mattered. Well, there's just one problem. That is not true. For there was a 5th stream that fed into the creation of our community, a stream called the Afro-Christian Church. It was created in 1892, and it contained 150 churches, 25,000 members, 185 authorized ministers. While it was centered primarily in Virginia and North Carolina, it had spread all the way to Texas. And in 1950, they came together with the black Congregationalists to form the Convention of the South. And in 1957, their phone rang, and the white folks in the United Church of Christ said, "Come, join us." They thought long and hard about the invitation, for they knew what happens when segments of the black community join predominantly white expressions. They get swallowed up. Their history, their culture, and their worship practices are erased. But leaders in the Convention of the South took a deep breath, trusted their siblings of faith, and joined. Guess what happened? They got swallowed up. Their history and culture and worship practices erased. And when the history of the United Church of Christ was told for 65 years, even when their ministers were trained in seminary like me, we never heard of the fifth stream. It was gone. Or was it? For the ancestors of the faithful prayed for the transformation, and they, in doing so, participated in the transformation. And guess what happened on September 23rd? And I left the fifth page in the printer. It's kind of like a end of a series, but I can answer that for you, and then I'll make some stuff up on the fly. On September 23rd, the Historical Council of the United Church of Christ rectified 65 years of injustice. They have reconfigured and re-envisioned us to account for not 4, but 5 streams. And today I am thrilled to say that 2 of the 4 national officers in our church are women of color. All because of the faithful prayers of those who would not be silenced. So friends, that's how it looks in a collective community, how we rectify our wrongs and how prayer can empower and embolden us to do it. So what I want to leave you with today is an opportunity for you to reflect for yourselves. What are those pieces of your life that you have tried to fix? When you, hear a theme developing, have done everything you know how, and you're still stuck. Maybe, just maybe in the anguish and that stuckness is an opportunity for you to lift up a sort of prayer that Marshall talked about today. And guess what? If you have the wisdom to do that, maybe, just maybe, your world might start to change as well. Let's live into that hope and possibility together. And with that, the people said, amen. I know I got quiet, so I'll try to get a little, I did it for dramatic effect, but I was, let's hang in there together and do amazing things. So with that, part of the way that we do amazing things and we overcome despair is what we call blank of the people. What's that first word? Prayers. Because when we gather as followers of Jesus, we know that something happens when we step forward boldly and become vulnerable and share. So with that, I'm going to receive the prayer cards and lift up for you the things that are on your hearts. And today I may open it up for those who didn't get a prayer card to speak theirs as well. So the first concern comes from Julie. She asks prayers for a rapid recovery for Allison's husband, Robert, who is in the hospital. So we think of Allison's husband, Robert. From Sarah, prayers of gratitude for all who have helped our family with checking in and bringing food. Yes. And from Gina, bring peace to all who are caught in conflicts and love them through to you. Are there any other prayers that you want lifted? Yes, Jonah. Yeah. So Joan's son, Chris, is in the hospital, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So prayers there. Yeah, Deb. Yes. Yes, all those who have hurting friends who have gone on, we think of them. Others? Yes, on the line, Bill.
Yes, we have one here from Lake Nofer, and she says, ongoing prayers for new caregiver.
All right, from Lake, ongoing prayers for her caregiver. And I'm particularly mindful of the young people's social circles. When suicide comes up, it's a tough thing for families and loved ones to talk about. And if this raises any issues for you, please know that I'm available and will be a loving companion as you deal with that yourselves. All right, let's go ahead and take a few moments to go to God in prayer through a song called A Prayer, Deep Peace. Then we'll hold some space, and for those who need that tangible experience of God's goodness and grace, you're welcome to come forward and receive the sealed communion elements. If you choose not to, you're welcome to pray or meditate in the pews, and then I'll close us with words of pastoral prayer. So let's go to God.
Peace, peace, deep peace, my peace I give to you. Peace, peace, deep peace, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, I give to you. Not as the world gives, I give to you. Peace, peace, deep peace, my peace I give to you.
Gracious God, we live in a world where pain is an ever-present companion on our journey. And I give thanks for the fact that our tradition never tries to look away from the pain when it's at its best, but rather, when we look at it, pray for it, and participate in a process, we are taken to a different place. And one of those things that takes us to a different place beyond the suffering and beyond the pain is our prayer lives. The place where we have a chance to be persistent, to be badgering, and to cry out for what we need. And I give thanks for a prayer life shaped by the prayer that Jesus left with his disciples. A prayer that never asks us to simply accept the status quo, but a prayer life that every time we lift it up calls for us to participate in an earth that looks more like heaven. And so, in that spirit of our prayer life and in a way of participating in it, we join together as we lift the prayer that Jesus taught, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our trespasses. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So in almost every tradition, there's an opportunity before we close to respond in faith. We have a series of ways that you can respond, and to be inclusive, I always remember we have listeners on the phone, so I read these out as well. If you want to financially support the ministries, ranging from helping subsidize the nursery school to provide space for recovery groups, to Toastmaster groups, you name it, you can send contributions by texting to 833-575-1738, the letters WHCC. You can use the giveapp.com address, or you can mail in a check. That's one way. A second way to participate is by staying connected to the email list, which you can join by texting the letters WHCC to 42828. And in this time of transition, I've been saying this for about 2.5 years, and we're making some progress. But everything that happens in the life of the church, everything should appear on that page. Whether it's youth group, leadership team meetings, the whole shmoly. It's on woodlandhillscommunitychurch.org updates. And that will be the thing that holds us together. And finally, one more thing, and then we have an announcement to get involved. We have a volunteer coordinator. It doesn't matter what you want to help with in the church. If you want to help with the memorial service this Saturday, if you want to help provide refreshments, anything, contact WHCC volunteer coordinator at gmail.com, and Jeannie Mowers will get you connected. So the first announcement will come from Kevin. Kevin will make it from the side, I think, and if you could use the microphone, that'll be good, and make sure that green light's on.
It's not in the bulletin, but I wanted to let everybody know that we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, the calendar year, and so we're going to have a meeting after church service next Sunday to go over where we are in the financials so far this year and open up the pledge drive for 2023.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that'll be next Sunday after worship, and the leadership team will lead. Gina, you have an announcement as well.
Is this really working?
Yes, yes.
Some people called and said that they didn't hear it last week, and that probably has to do with the fact that I'm not good with technological stuff. But I am good with food, and so would everyone who is here be assured that there is a way for you to express and participate joyfully in the experience that we have had of 13 years of ministry from Craig Peterson. It is possible for you to express your appreciation by coming to the luncheon and sharing with others on the 30th the festive program that's being planned by Wayne and others. You can participate in that, so don't hesitate to lend your talents and your joy to that expression. And if there is anyone who maybe is a little bit more like I am, and I don't really want to get up and sing in front of you, but I don't think you want it either. But if you want to help in providing the luncheon, you can do it either with food, and that food is according to a menu, so please call me or call Jeannie Mowers and let her know that you want to do that, or send an email, whatever it is. And there's sign-up sheets out front. And there's also a book for you to sign in, to leave your name along with everyone else. You know, we're encouraging everybody to sign in the book for Craig to have as a memento. If you don't want to cook and you want to send a card or something like that, you know that you can contribute to a gift of appreciation for Craig by writing a check to Woodland Hills Community Church, and in the memo line putting the word farewell. And that will help with Kevin when he's trying to sort all these things out. And so there are plenty of ways to contribute and be heard, and let the rest of us, and Craig especially, know that his 13 years have been greatly appreciated, and that we're happy that he's going to a new place. It's changed, but it's good.
Yes, yes.
There is a basket on the sign, by the sign-up table, that is for cards, if you'd like to leave a card for Craig. And it will be out there next Sunday and the Sunday after also. Okay? Did I do it all, Julie? Okay, good. Okay. Thank you for your patience.
All right. So if you've known anything about me in 13 years, it's like I like to do things in different contexts or situations, so we experience them differently. 2 weeks ago, we sang Joy to the World in October to talk about the good news and what it brings in the midst of pain. Today, we're going to sing a song that's almost always associated with the civil rights movement, We Shall Overcome. But I want you to experience it differently. I want you to think about a struggle, a challenge, a trial, a fear that you have in your life today. Make it very personal. And sing out boldly this affirmation that our hope and our faith is bigger than that which is before us in some way. And so let's sing together. Thea will lead us, and Wayne will as well.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall shall make us free. The truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe the truth shall make us free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
Alrighty. So, I was thinking as words of sending about a pocket of wisdom and what I might say about prayer that could send you forth. And I'll draw from my own experience. If someone were to say, what helped your prayer life more than anything else? You know what I would say? It might surprise you. Coming out. Here's why. Before I came out looking like this, a white guy, middle class, and all of that, my faith was in the system. I thought if we just only elected the right folks and we had the right laws and I had an economic portfolio and all those things, I would do just fine. Thank you very much. God was kind of a luxury over here on the shelf. But I was going to take care of it myself. But when I came out, and overnight, everything was gone. I could be fired. I could be thrown out of housing. I could do anything like that. I learned to reevaluate where I put my faith. And boy, did my prayer life improve. All of us will have that moment. Maybe some of us have had it because of gender or of race, but all of us will one day reach it through a process known as aging. As our power and ability becomes limited. And it can either make you bitter and angry and resentful, and I've met a few of those folks, or it can bathe you in the presence and the power and the companionship of the Spirit. So if you remember one thing about prayer, remember that it can connect you and keep you grounded in the most unexpected and miraculous ways. And let's go forth this week and pray her up. All right, and with that, let's soar above the limitation and challenges as we sing together our chorus on Eagle's Wings. Go with God.
And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of God's hand. And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear